Hello everyone, welcome to our channel and that is Double Click Academy, your ultimate online lessons. Today, you realize basically we shall be looking at that is how to use Excel sheet in Excel. So before we continue, please make sure that you click and subscribe to our channel so that you'll be in position to always get those updates whenever we post them. So we go straight away to open our Excel sheet. Just like the way we did it with our Word, we shall still do the same thing with the Excel sheet. How do we do that? Like the way we did with Word, we just came straight away to our search box. Then we search for Excel. So it will give you Excel sheet from there. Then we shall just click on the app of Excel. And here is our Excel sheet opening. Just like Word, we had in Word a blank document. This time we have a blank workbook. So we basically go to the blank workbook, like we talked about the ones in Word. The other ones were templates. So it's the same thing here with the Excel as well. Here we have personal monthly budget template, we have sales report templates, we have expense report templates, and there are so many. We have so many templates. From here, you can click for more templates, but that is not our interest for today. Our interest for today is basically to start up with a blank workbook. That is our interest. So we shall click on the blank workbook, and there it is opening opening our Excel sheet. Now here you realize this is our Excel sheet. Here we have a sheet. A sheet is a composition of so many cells within our page or sheet for this case. So here we realize we have cell A1. How do you know that this is cell A1? You can know that this is cell A1 when you have clicked on that cell, and from top here it will show A1. Assuming we clicked anywhere else also here, we shall click here. Here means this is cell K6. What is K6 or A1 or whatever cell you have clicked on? Here we basically got the name of the cell from the columns and the rows. So you know that these are our columns, A, B, C, D up to infinity. Those are our columns. And then our rows are 1, 2, 3, 4 up to infinity. Those are our rows. So it is a composition of a column with a cell. That's why from here, our column is K, then our cell is cell 6. So that is basically how the cell or the cells get their names from. So this is a cell, and assuming we are starting to type in our cell, we can start from wherever we want, depending on your preference for what basically you want to do with your Excel sheet. So this is Excel sheet, and we can do the same thing in terms of saving, just like the way we saved we saved our Word document into our folder. We shall do the same thing. We shall either come to save icon here, or we shall come to file, whichever it will take us there. We can use the shortcut control keys, that is control and save. Control plus save also still will take you there. If assuming we have it will still bring us to this. And it is the same thing if we had clicked on our save icon from here, it still brings us here. So we know basically where we created our folder from. We know that our folder probably could be in the desktop, and that is the case with this. And if you're not seeing any desktop from here, you can just come straight away to browse. When you come to browse, browse will now take you to where you can so simply find your desktop from. The desktop basically is on the left hand side here. You can scroll up until when you see your desktop. Our desktop is here. Then we shall click on the desktop, and here it will bring all what is appearing in the desktop, both files and folders that are in the desktop. It will show up. So for this case, we know that our folder is double click Academy 2. That is exactly where we are going to save our sheet or our file in. So we shall double click on this, and then it opens up. And now here we have our direction is this PC. It's in the desktop, and it will be saved in double click Academy 2. Now here it shows no items match your search, simply because we don't have any other Excel sheet or Excel file in our double click Academy 2. But doesn't mean that we don't have files. We have other files, but the files are not in Excel format. That's why from here we don't have any other Excel file. So from here we shall now come and click here under book 1. Under book 1 we shall now type the file name. Maybe the file name is understanding Excel, assuming that is our file name. So we shall now type here understanding Excel sheet. That is our title or our file name for this case. Then we shall click on save. By the time you click on save, from here it has changed from book 1 to understanding Excel sheet. So it means we have fully saved our file into our folder. So this one we are successful with it, and we can now start doing our work successfully because we are so much confident that we have saved it into the right file or into the right direction. So how do we now start dealing with cells? Now in Excel, every cell matters, and like we already said it before, that every cell has its own name. Unlike in Word, whereby a page is a page, we don't have a demarcations with our Word documents. It's just plain. You always have to differentiate it by paragraphing, doing whatever, line spacing, and the rest. Here we have the beginning, end of each cell, and the ending bit of the cell. So as we are typing, we have to be mindful of the range or the length of that cell. So from here, assuming we want to type things like maybe we are dealing with assuming coursework for students. We are dealing with the coursework for students. Here it means we shall type, maybe we shall start with serial number there. Then after the serial number, we now want to type here the registration number of students, registration number there. Then after typing the registration number, we also want to type now the student name. The student name is there. Like we said, this is guided by it has its limit. Now you realize student name is overlapping. Instead of it being appearing in C1 only, but it has also overlapped up to D1. Now, how do we deal with this kind of situations? So realize after we have typed student name, we can just click anywhere outside student name, and then we shall now come back to that column of student name, that is column C1, column C and row 1. Then we shall now go on top of that, that is in the column ending. From there, we shall now put it in this aspect. Now, when a cursor is moving from anywhere in the cell here, you realize it has a big fat plus. When we bring it up here, it changes. Now, when it gives you that kind of a plus with sharp endings, you realize from there, we shall now be in position to make adjustments for this column. There are two ways we can do that. The first one is for us to put the cursor on top like that. Let it appear in that pointed cross. Then after, we shall either double click, that is the first way. We shall double click and that cell or that column enlarges. It becomes wider, unlike it was. Or we can also bring the cursor on top, let it still show you the same symbol. Then we press or we click, long click, and then we drag it up to where you want it to be. So that is that as well. So you realize we have enlarged the cell by doing that. Also, we might not be interested in enlarging the cell, but we might be interested in doing what they call wrapping the text. That means we want the text to still fit in that very inner cell. Now, how do we do that? Now, after we have typed, we can click anywhere. Then we can bring the cursor back to the word student name like that, like the way it's appearing. Then after doing that, we shall now come down, come up here where there is wrap text, abbreviated by ABC, that is wrap text. So we shall now click on wrap text, and then the text will be jumped down. Now you can see all the possible ways we can fit in our work to fit so that we shall be in position to continue with whatever we want to do. So assuming that is that, then also maybe one of the variables or factors we have after the student name, we also want to get the coursework 1 mark, maybe coursework 1 out of 15. Then also we also have student details of coursework 2 out of 15 as well. So you realize that is that. Then after we have gotten the coursework marks, we might also be interested in getting the total coursework. So here we shall have total coursework, or we can call it final coursework. So that is that. So you realize these are the details we have for our student. Now, assuming we have maybe up to 5 students, the first one having the serial number 1, then maybe a serial number 2, and serial number 3. Now, if you have typed 1, 2, 3, you might not necessarily list 1, 2, 3. Assuming you have 100 students, you might not type here 1, 2, 3 up to 100. After typing 1, 2, 3, or 4, whichever, then you can now highlight 1, 2, 3 by clicking and long click, and then you drag it up to where there is a 3. So it means we have highlighted from 1 to 3. Then now we can now drag up to where we want. Assuming we have 10 students, we shall now drag up till we reach where there is a 10th students there. So it will now generate the serial numbers on its own, not necessarily you typing 1, 2, 3 up to 10. So that is one of the ways we can do it. Now, assuming also we realize that this column is very large for this serial number. What we can also do, remember the other one we enlarge the columns. For this one, we can also do two things. We take the cursor up when it gives us the symbol that we saw previously. We can now either double click and it becomes smaller, it just resizes itself automatic, or we can put the cursor there still, then we long press and drag it by reducing it up to the size we want. So that is how we deal with this kind of cells. And then also now we want to assign registration numbers here. Assuming we don't want to have complicated registration numbers, maybe we can have a registration number like we can just simplify by saying maybe A, A001, that is the registration number. Maybe they are not in order for this case. Then we also have A010. Then maybe, sorry, we have here A. We have missed A. We have A010. Then we have maybe A002 for this case. Then maybe we have A004, something like that. Assuming we have all that, and then we have the next number being A006, A005, 008, and then the last number we have missed is A003. Now, assuming those are the registration numbers we have, then maybe we have some student names of, we have Eric, Anna, Jane, and these are the names we have. And then the last 4 names we have are so those are the names. Now, assuming they have their corresponding marks, coursework 1 out of 15, maybe here we had 11, we had 14, this got 15, we had 10, maybe we also had somebody who scored less than 10, then we also had another 14, maybe 14, 13, 11, and then maybe 12. So those are the scores for coursework 1. Then we have coursework 2, still the same out of 15. Maybe we add the people scoring 10 here. We add 11, 12, 10, or 15. So those are the scores. So you realize that is now the data we shall be using for even our subsequent calculations. So that is that. So other than doing that, we can now try to do some bit of calculations. Now, how do we calculate in Excel? So you realize Excel basically is meant for calculation purposes and is so simple. Whenever you're trying to do any calculation or any computation in Excel, the first thing you have to do is to first of all click where exactly you want that figure to appear from after your computations. Then after that, the next thing will be to click on, to type there the equal sign. Equal sign is a must. Without an equal sign, it means you will not be in position to compute what exactly you want. So you first click on that box or that cell. Then after clicking on that cell, type there, press there the equal sign. After pressing the equal sign, now you can be in position to put your formula. Now we know that the total coursework here implies that it is the coursework 1 mark plus the coursework 2 mark. That one gives you the total, of which we know that 15 plus 15 gives you 30. It means our total coursework mark is equals to 30. So it means now for this case, after putting the equal sign, we now come to click. Here we don't type 11 plus 10. If you do that, still you'll get the same the correct answer, but then the formula you've used will not be in position to simplify to compute for maybe 100s or 1000s of the students you have. So that's why when we are doing the computation here, we use the cells. We will say it will be cell D2 plus cell E2. How do we know that those are the cells we are using for computing? Now when you come to 11, 11 is in cell D2. Then 10 is in cell E2. So even if now we put the equal sign, then we say instead of putting 11, we just come and click where 11 is. Click on where 11 is. It will not show 11 from this other side of total coursework. Instead, it will show the cell number, which is D2. You have not typed D2, but it has just brought D2 after you have clicked on where 11 is, and 11 is in position D2. Then after that, we shall now put our equal sign, the plus sign. We shall now put plus. It means D2 equals plus. Where there is 10, you still click where there is 10. Don't put 10. Click. When you click, it will show E2. It means 10 is in E2. So, in other words, your formula appears from the function bar from here. It shows that you pressed equal sign, then equal sign. It means the total coursework for Eric with the registration number A001, Eric's total coursework equals to D2 plus E2. If you're so sure of the positions, instead of clicking, you can still put the position numbers. That is D2 plus E2. But if you're not sure certain of the positions, it's better you put your equal sign, then click where those numbers are, the numbers you want to compute. Click on those cells where those numbers are seated in, so that you'll be in position to do that computation. So after doing that, you can now press the enter key. It now gives you that Eric has 21 out of 30 in all the coursework. Then after doing that, we shall not compute for all these other 9 people. Instead, we shall click back to the Eric total mark. That is 21. In that cell, we shall click there. When you click on that cell, it will show the formula. So that's why for some of you might be interested in using calculators, confusing people that you're doing Excel and yet you're doing it in a calculator, then you're putting it here. When we click on these answers of yours, they will not show the formula if you did it outside the Excel. If you did it using Excel, when you click on those answers, they will give you the formula. So from here, after clicking on this, 21 mark, then we shall now put our cursor at the extreme here. down extreme here on the right, on that joint. Then after putting it there, we long press. Then we drag while pressing still our while clicking it, long click or long press. We can whatever you want. Then you drag it up to where you want it. Then you leave it. By the time you're leaving it, it will compute for all these other names or these other students' marks as well. So from here, we realize we have basically this total marks for all these students. So basically, that is that about how you can use your Excel in computing some of the things. Doesn't matter whether you want to subtract, you want to add, you want to divide, whichever. You only have to do the same thing. From here, you said put the equal sign, then you now click on the cells where those numbers you want to compute are seated on. Then you can now be in position to do the computation. After doing that, we press enter and it gives us all what we want. So that is when you're computing for the columns. Now, assuming we wanted to compute these other figures as well, maybe assuming we want to find out it's not normal, but that is just for study purpose. Assuming we want to compute the total coursework scored by all these students, maybe we can just compute the total coursework here. Maybe we can put here total mark by all students. So in a coursework, we can get the total marks scored by students. Then we shall do the same thing. Below the coursework one, we click there beneath. Then we put the equal sign, just like the way we did it from there. Now for this case, you might not be in position to say this plus this plus this plus this plus whatever. But there is also a simple way of summing. That is the summation. You put equal sign, then you type the word sum, which is SUM, that's sum. It will give you all the options of sum. Then you double click on this first sum like that. Then it will open up. Then you can now bring the cursor to the first mark, that is from Eric. Then now from there we long press and drag it up to the last student there. Then you leave the dragging and the cursor. Then now we shall now close this bracket by shift O. So that is closing. So it means you've closed the brackets and then you press enter. Now it will give you that all these students scored a total mark of 121. Then for coursework 2, you might not still compute the coursework 2. Only what you have to do, come and click on this answer you've just gotten, bring the cursor still to the extreme, and then drag it. Assuming you want to compute the total coursework as well, drag it. It will compute for us all those other marks that we wanted. So that is that. It's the same thing assuming we wanted to compute the average mark. The average mark for coursework 1, we can still put, assuming here we want to compute average mark there, we shall type the average, then we want to compute the average mark for coursework 1. Click there, then still put the equal sign. This time we know that we are computing the average. We know that average is the total mark divided by the number of students, but that's not what we are going to do from here. We can just simplify by typing the word average. You realize before you even finish typing average, there are average options here. For this case, we are interested in the first average here. We shall double click on that average. Then it will now put that average there with the open brackets. Then we shall now come still and drag from the first student up to the last student. Don't make a mistake to again include the total as well. We are not interested in the total. We are only interested in those. Then after we leave and close the bracket. Now, when you close the bracket and you press enter, now it gives us the total average mark. The total average mark is now 12.1. So it means on average, these people scored 12.1. Now you can now continue with coursework by dragging and even the total coursework. Now coursework 2, the average mark is 12 without 0.1. Then on average, the total coursework mark out of 30 is 24.1. So that is the average. You can do the same thing with the minimum and the maximum. Assuming you want here minimum, we know the minimum means the least mark. The least mark is what we want to find out. Then we come here, we press the equal sign. Then here we are saying min. Mean represents minimum. We do the same thing like the way we did with the total and average. Then we double click on mean, and then we now come and select all the marks up to the last student, who is Anna. Then there we now close the bracket and we press enter. So it means the mean, the least mark here is 7. Then we can do the same by dragging. Now, in coursework 1, the least mark was 7, which is this. Then in coursework 2, you realize the least mark still, is 10 for this case. There are so many 10s, but it's still the least mark. Then here in total coursework, the least mark squared in total coursework is 17, which is now this. So it's the same thing you'll do with the maximum. We can still put here maximum. Then we shall still come under it. Then we put equal sign. Then now we put maximum. We know that maximum is the highest mark squared. So we do the same thing. Then we scroll for all the students, and then we close the bracket and we press enter. So the maximum mark squared in coursework 2, coursework 1 was 15. Coursework 2 was also 15. Coursework 2 was also 15. And then up to 11. This is supposed to be the highest mark. The maximum mark squared in coursework 1 is 15. The maximum mark squared in coursework 2 is 15. Then in the total maximum mark squared in the total coursework is 28, which is this one. So the highest person who scored 28 is Pele with 28. And so that is basically that with this kind of illustrations of calculation. So we can also look at how we can create more sheets. You realize from here it shows that sheet 1. Now, assuming we wanted to add another sheet, remember in Word we talked of pages and the rest. Here we have sheets. So here we have sheet 1. Maybe we might be interested in creating sheet 2 as well. So sheet 2, for us to add a sheet, we come to this plus sign. We point at the plus sign, then we click. When you click on the plus sign, it means it has created sheet 2 as well. Now we shall now know that our sheet 1 is the one that contains our work. Now, assuming we don't want to use the sheet 1, 2, we just want to use maybe names here. Maybe here we want to rename this to coursework marks. So instead of it showing sheet 1, we want to show coursework mark. So how do we rename? We rename by coming to click on that. There are two ways. Either you click twice, or we can right click on that sheet we want to rename, then we come to rename there. Then now we put the name we want, which is coursework sheet. Coursework sheet. So then you click anywhere. Now the name has been changed from sheet 1 to coursework sheet. So that is how we rename this, and that is our work basically on that. So with that, I'm very sure we are in position to understand the workings of Excel, more especially in the workings of how we deal with the cells, how cells give us the opportunity to do whatever we want to do. So with that, that is the basics of our Excel. So in our subsequent videos, it will be very simple for us to now use Excel because we have understood the cells, how to deal with the computations, and also renaming the sheets. So with that, I would like to say this is the fundamental. Watch this video as many times as you wish, because after watching them, you will now get the fundamentals on what you'll be in position to do with the next stages. So thank you so much for listening, and I wish you well in your learning.